guys. Welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica, and I'm your host. And you can follow me on Twitter at @Jessino, which is right there. You can see it. Football's back. Football is back. The international break has ended, and we are now back to talking Arsenal and not just rambling on about nonsense that doesn't mean anything. We're going to be talking about the Arsenal versus Crystal Palace game, which is the beginning of another run of games that I think will be very insightful to where Arsenal are now. The last run of games for me was just us getting back into a respectable, having a respect, like just basically not being a laughing stock. We got back to a point where, okay, we can kind of go from here and then see what we're doing from this point. These next 4 games are super important, and this Crystal Palace match is, it's going to be a big one. It's a London derby, so I would expect it to be a little bit less. These are the type of matches that sometimes form and quality and stuff gets thrown out the window because obviously the environment and having 2 London clubs going up against each other with some overlap in terms of Patrick Vieira versus Arteta, it can all make the game a little bit more muddy than it probably should be on paper. Nevertheless, I do think that we are the better team, and that would lead me to think that we would be the more dominant force in this match. But again, the game is not played on paper, so I think we have to be very, very careful about how we go about this game against this new look Crystal Palace team under Patrick Vieira. Of course, the game is not until Monday, as Tony has already said. We still have to wait a little bit longer. And the worst part about it is that I feel like it's almost like this forced 2 games in 1 week type of schedule by putting Aston Villa on the Friday. So we're going to have 2 games in 1 week, and it would be really nice to be able to have this Crystal Palace match be, tomorrow or Sunday, but it's Monday. But we're going to talk about it anyway today. Yeah. Where to begin? It's a weird one because the Brighton match, I think, was a good result because of how poor we played, so you have to take it as kind of that. But I'm hoping that over this international break, which I find it a little bit difficult to believe that this has happened, that we have figured out some sort of way of playing against teams that like to press us and are going to make lives difficult for us. If all it takes is for a team to press us, for us to just kind of fall apart, then we're going to be in trouble. And if I was Patrick Vieira and Crystal Palace, I would be telling my team to press Arsenal because we don't like it. And so I'm hoping that maybe we've shaken off the kind of whatever you want to call it that we had against Crystal Palace, and we can go into this match a little bit more confident in our technical ability and not so rattled if a team decides to go ahead and press us. So we know what our last couple of fixtures look like. We beat Norwich 1-0 at home. We beat Burnley 1-0 away from home. We beat Spurs 3-1 at home, and we drew Brighton away from home 0-0. Crystal Palace, although has a new look to them and some new exciting young players, I would say that their results have been just okay. They've been just okay. Their last kind of 5-ish matches, they drew 0-0 to Brentford. They drew 2-2 with West Ham. They beat Tottenham 3-0. They lost to Liverpool 3-0. They drew Brighton 1-1, and they drew Leicester 2-2. So we would kind of maybe call them the draw specialists at this moment in time. I would say that that's pretty accurate. They draw a lot of matches, and they do have goals in them. They have new players, kind of in and around the team, like Hudson Edouard. I think in their last match, he got 2 goals in his first match or something like that, which is great. Zaha is playing okay. So they do have some players, like they do have some things going on. That being said, I don't think drawing 4 out of the last of your last 5 matches really means that you're on the up. They do like to press. Patrick Vieira has them in a shape that makes them feel more comfortable. They have more youthful energy. If we remember back to last season under Roy Hodgson, that team was quite old. A lot of I think they were the oldest team in the Premier League, if maybe the second oldest next to Burnley, but that was an old team. Now they have players like Conor Gallagher in the team, Odson Edward, et cetera, et cetera. I think Anderson, who was on loan at Fulham last season, Gree, who used to play for Chelsea and went on to loan at Swansea. So more youthful energy, at Palace. Now, does youth always equal quality? Not really, but I do think that playing a younger, more energetic Palace side will pose more issues to us than that older side that we played last season. Let's see what you guys are saying. Champ says, imagine all of our main target teams around us in the league drop points to build anxiety to win the match just to lose on the Monday. Please, Arsenal. Yeah, it depends on how you look at it. I'm kind of like, I don't like to be the last match. It gives me too much anxiety to wait. But also, if you do lose, it doesn't ruin the rest of your weekend. So for me, it's kind of like that give and take. I like to be somewhere right in the middle, but this time we're the very last match and then we're the very first match the next week. So it's kind of like both ends of the spectrum. Christian says Partey needs to score goals for Arsenal just like he does for Ghana. Balham says Arsenal should win being at home on a Monday night and Crystal Palace should stay up. Luke Cooper says Michael Olise, Edward, Zaha, what a front three. Yeah, Tony, I don't mind this Monday game after a break. Everyone should be back to fit and 2 extra days. The only question is that I have is who starts next to Party, and that's something we definitely can talk about. And I do understand like the whole okay, they have Michael Elise, Edward, and Zaha, but what I will say is that I don't think that that's really the same level of quality that we have. I think those are exciting names that make people feel like, but personally, I still think that we have more quality in our side. A lot of people are bigging up Conor Gallagher. I don't really rate him above many of our players. I don't, you know what I mean? I don't think Guyi is infinitely better than Gabriel. I don't think he's better than Gabriel at all. I don't think Anderson is better than Ben White. We are the better side, period. They don't have anybody similar to Thomas Partey in their midfield. And we know that on Aubameyang's day, he's one of the better strikers in the league. So there's always a team where I feel like they get some younger players in their team that are very talented, but they're not quite what they are projected to be. So then we go up against them and we're like, oh my gosh, this team, we're still the better team. So we should probably win this game. So as we know, Arteta has kind of already spoken about who's available, and that's pretty much everybody but Martinelli. And Martinelli is injured. So I think it's important for fans that are looking for something because my thing is, although I'm not always Arteta's biggest fan, I think the idea that he's ruining Martinelli's career, which continuously goes around every couple of weeks where Martinelli doesn't come in as a sub and all of this, even if we win the game, he's ruining his career. The guy is having an issue staying fit. He's having an issue staying fit, so for me, he's injured now. He won't be available for the Monday game. And I still expect to see some Arsenal fans say, well, why didn't Martinelli come in? Well, he's not even available to play. And it's a bigger question where he fits into the side without Europe. But for this game, he's not available, but everybody else is. For me, the most interesting conversation is kind of what Tony had said. Who's going to start next to Thomas Partey? And then who is going to be the front four? We know that there's certain combinations of that front four that work, others that leave a lot to be desired. And without Xhaka, I think it poses kind of it poses an issue on how do we make up for that. I think we've seen a team away from home at the MX that struggled in midfield with Sambi and Thomas playing in a pivot together. And I love those two players individually, but seeing them together in a game like that kind of put me off of it. Not to say that I wouldn't want to see it again, but I think in a game against Palace, I think we could go with something a little bit more progressive. And if Palace decide to press us, what I would love to see us do is leave some players high up against their back four and kind of make them have to play that jeopardy. So if they decide to press us, then we're going to pass around you and then go on the break. That is what I would like to see our team do. And I think we could do that if we put the right players in place to do it. For me, this is a good opportunity to try Odegaard in that Xhaka role. That's kind of where I would want to see him play in this game. Because for me, that it allows us to get Pepe and Saka and ESR on the pitch all at once. And I think that that's our best possible chance of creating the amount of chances and the amount of threat that we're going to need to counterbalance them when they throw their men forward. So for me, it's a little bit of like I want to see more risk so that we could get the reward for it. So that's what I would kind of want to see. Not that I think Sambi and Thomas can't work, but I do think that watching Odegaard and Thomas, I think there was more balance there. And if you have more offensive players in your offensive positions, so if you have your front four of we'll talk about the striker situation in a second, but a striker, Saka, Pepe, and ESR with Odegaard and Thomas in the pivot, then you don't have to require Tierney to bomb up that left-hand side every single time that he gets the ball. And we can have him tuck in a little bit more and don't need our left-sided midfielder to play left back all the time. And I just think it gives us a better option. That's just me. That's what I would prefer to see. But is there anybody in the comments that feels like you would prefer to see Sambi and Thomas again after the not so successful pivot that that we had against Brighton? Tamp says, I wouldn't want Odegaard drifting into that left back role when Tierney bombs on. Odegaard will get caught out as a left side center midfield. But see, that's the thing. I just feel like tactically, why don't we just tell Tierney to stay back and pick his moments? I also feel like Gabriel has the ability to cover that space on his own anyway. And so when you have half of the time Tierney staying back, and the other half of the time, Gabriel just covering that space, and even Thomas dropping back into center back to form that back four. I think that that's a better option. And that's kind of what we saw against, I think was it Burnley? It was one of those matches where Odegaard kind of dropped in. I just think it's a matter of tactics and telling Tierney to pick and choose his moments. And I think it's a tactical thing where Arteta is telling them to drop into left back. And I kind of want to just ditch that whole idea anyway, because I don't think it really helps us to have midfielders vacant. We already don't have the greatest midfielders. So if you vacate midfield anyway, it makes it double worse, if that makes sense. So for me, I think you tell Odegaard to play in that position and you play almost like a midfield three with Odegaard, ESR, and Thomas sitting back a little bit more. And then Tierney picks and chooses his moments to bomb forward and Gabriel covers the space. If we're not willing to take a risk against Crystal Palace at home, then when are we going to take a risk? We have to. I don't think the way that we play in terms of being more risk adverse gives us that much more benefits because we just don't score enough goals to really be playing this defensive. And so that's kind of what I would want to see. Kurt Bento says there's also the fact that Arteta needs to play the first team a lot together. So Martinelli will be on the bench for a while. Yeah, I mean, we complained last season because he had like a million different first 11s that he played. Now that we're kind of getting more used to one, we still want to see other people in it. I prefer to create partnerships and keep that chemistry going. So it's going to be interesting to see. But I think Martinelli, he's like an injury away from being an important part of this team again. So I'm not too worried about him at the moment. He's in the back of my mind, but I'm not super worried about it. Enzo says, I would put ESR next to Thomas. ESR can make runs from deep and Thomas holds. Well, where does Odegaard go then? Tam says, I wouldn't want Odegaard. Oh, no, you did say that. Tam says, take risk and prosper indeed. Yeah, that's just my take on it, is that if we're not willing to take risks against Crystal Palace at home, then when are we going to take these risks? And I do think that if we have an Odegaard, ESR, Thomas Party midfield, I think that that's a better option than Thomas and Sambi in the pivot. You tell Tierney to pick and choose his times and just let him play left back. You can still bomb forward and make good runs as a left back. And the thing about Tierney is that he pretty much plays like a left winger. He doesn't always have to do that. That's by design in terms of the system. And I think it takes away from something. I really think that because it's so predictable and so many people know that that's what we're going to do, it makes us lopsided. It makes us vacate the midfield. And personally, I'd rather see ESR and Odegaard and more of our forwards kind of occupying those wide positions, putting in crosses and things like that, than Tierney constantly doing it, because I do think that he fatigues and he's struggling a little bit. Leonide Brezhnev on ice says ESR is not a playmaker, Odegaard is. Tony says 4-3-3 gets all of our best talent on the field. I like it. And that's kind of, I think it almost worked against Burnley. And I want to say that it was the Burnley match. Let me just double check it. I know most of our games have not been wonderful. There's always been something kind of missing from it. But if I remember correctly, that's kind of how we played against them. Yeah, so against Burnley, we played that same back four with Thomas kind of a little bit deeper. So it's basically a 4-1-4-1. And then Odegaard and Smith Rowe were in front of Thomas, and Pepe and Saka were wide. And really the issue with that game is that our passing was just really bad, but we were getting into decent positions, but we just couldn't get that final product. And so that's kind of the exact same thing I would want to see against Crystal Palace. I would love to see a 4-1-4-1. Now, the only difference or the only change that I would make is I would start Lacazette. And the reason for that is I feel as though ESR and Pepe play better with Lacazette than they do with Aubameyang. And I think Saka can pretty much play with anybody. Odegaard, if he's playing in a little bit more of a deeper 8 role, I'm not too worried about him needing to be really close to Aubameyang, because that's pretty much the only reason why if Odegaard is playing in the 10, I kind of want Aubameyang there so that they're closer together. But for me, I would like to see Lacazette play in that position, because I just feel like he can hold up the ball, and Aubameyang's getting kind of lost. And against Brighton, I thought that he got quite lost in the back three. Maybe it wouldn't be that bad against Crystal Palace, but I don't think it would be a bad idea to let Lacazette come in, because he plays really well with Pepe. He knows how to drop in and find those passes in behind the back line to release Pepe and Bukayo Saka and ESR. And I feel like with him, you can allow him to drop deep, let some of your more sprinty players run in behind, and you kind of get that good balance of playmaking, but he's still kind of a threat in the box. I worry about Aubameyang's build-up play still, and I feel like he just left a little bit to be desired in that Brighton game. And out of all the players, he'd probably be the one that I'd probably drop, just because I didn't think he offered us much in terms of really anything, if we're honest. Let me see. They played that back three, and he was never going to get anything out of that back three. But let me look at Crystal Palace and see, because I could have sworn they were playing in like a 4-4-2 type formation. Let's see what they did against Brighton really quick, just so I can look at the difference. They played like a 4-3-3 against Brighton. So yeah, I think Aubameyang probably could get more joy against this back four, but I personally want to see Lacazette come into this game. maybe it's not a good idea, but for me, I think it wouldn't hurt to see him because he plays really well with Smith Rowe and Pepe, and that's 2 out of the 4 that are gonna be playing in that, front 4. Bowie the Cat says, "Vieira's press conference earlier showed what a classy man and an absolute legend he is." I love Patrick Vieira. I absolutely love that guy so much. I mean, he's amazing, and he's it's so funny. Did you guys see when the guy from TalkSport was like, um, asking Arteta, about how Arsenal is still kind of looking for that captain and midfielder since Vieira left. And it's so funny because Arteta was kind of a captain and a midfielder. I thought it was kind of funny. I know it looked rude, but at the same time it was kind of funny. I'm not gonna lie. Arteta was nowhere near the Vieira levels in any way, shape, or form. I know he was a decent captain and all that kind of stuff, but Vieira was he was special, and I just love that guy. I want to see him do well, to be honest. Not against us, but I want to see him do well. Tony, will you be doing a watch along? Not for this one. I'll let you guys know when the next watch along is going to happen. We have to figure that one out. Enzo says Pepe has to play for me with Laka up front. Will hold or drop deep, which in turn allows the midfielders to make late runs. Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. And it's not to shade Aubameyang or anything like that. I think there's going to be different games for different players. And even though I do think that Aubameyang would get some joy against this Crystal Palace team, with ESR and Pepe hopefully coming into the side to play with Saka, I would prefer to see Lacazette dropping in and turning and allowing those guys to run in behind. I think that's how you're going to hurt that back line a little bit more. From my knowledge, Ward and Anderson on that left-hand side are not the best. Like they're not very fast. I know for sure. Well, yeah, I know for sure Ward and Anderson are not very quick. So that's the side that I would kind of target in terms of putting somebody over there that could beat them one on one and really put them under pressure. And whether that's Bukayo Saka or Pepe, I think both of them could kind of do some damage, as well as ESR. We want to put them under threat. Like at some point, players need to be running in behind and making defenders make decisions. And right now, we just don't really do that. I don't see a lot of switching in positions. I don't see people overlapping. I don't see players making late runs into the box. And quite frankly, once you shut down the left-hand side and kick ESR and Saka's ankles, you pretty much know that you've shut us down. So I would love to see more movement, more risk-taking, more something, because the last couple of games, although the defense has looked pretty solid, the offense is still leaving a lot to be desired. And I think when you have players like ESR and Saka in your team and Pepe, you got to let those guys cook. Like you have to let them switch positions, be a little bit more free, take men on, put them in positions where they can be successful. Like even Pepe, and you guys later on tonight at 10 p.m. UK, me and Souls and George will be back and we'll be having a more in-depth conversation about Pepe. But the thing about him is he's just not being put in positions to be successful. When he's on the edge of the box, making defenders make decisions about whether or not they want to try to tackle him or let him go by, he's very, very, very dangerous. On the halfway line, he's very, very dangerous. Where he's not dangerous is out on the touch line. And that's where he usually is. And we need to put them in better positions. And I think Lacazette will help you do that by dropping in deep and allowing the center backs to come into him, and then for him to be able to pop those balls into those half spaces. Tony says, what about Laka and Abba with Pepe on the bench? Just throwing it out there. For me, it's never been a favorite of mine. I'm not a big fan of Lacazette and Aubameyang playing together. I know that it worked a little bit during the FA Cup, and it worked once upon a time when we were in the Europa League with Emery. But I think ultimately, when you have Lacazette and Aubameyang out there, we struggle. And Aubameyang, I don't know. It's not a favorite of mine. If we did do it, I'd be disappointed, but I can see why people feel like if you put two strikers out there, that's probably more chances of scoring goals. But I think it throws off the balance of that front line, and so I prefer to see Arteta choose one or the other. I remember last season when we were getting into the rhythm of either when we were going to play ESR and Pepe, we played Lacazette. When we were going to play Odegaard, we played Aubameyang, and it broke down as soon as we got and we played against West Ham, and he started Lacazette and Aubameyang together, and it broke down. There's no reason to bring Aubameyang back into the team, and I know he wanted to because of what happened in the North London derby. He wanted to mend fences, but with this particular side at the moment, I think it does not function with both of those guys up top. You need to choose one or the other, and on this particular match, I would choose Lacazette and bench Aubameyang. No, no love lost there. Just a choice, you know. Leonide says Lacazette is underrated, but his time at Arsenal is now settled. Bench. I mean, I kind of get what you're saying, but I do think that if he had played against Brighton from the beginning, we might have gotten a different outcome. He did change the game when he came on. And I think some of that had to do with Brighton kind of slowing down a little bit because they had kind of pressed really hard in that first half. But I think we're still going to have to use Lacazette in some situations because let's just be real, like Aubameyang really struggles against physical center backs and he's not very great in build up. And so when you need somebody to kind of get get the ball and do something with it, Aubameyang really kind of hurts us when he's in there sometimes. So I think although Lacazette's time is up, it wouldn't hurt to use him in games where he'd be beneficial to us and maybe a better option than Aubameyang. Mr. Austin says, Jess finally behind Laka. Look, I want Lacazette to go as soon as possible. I'd like him to leave in January. But I'm more concerned about how are we going to beat Crystal Palace. And I wouldn't be devastated if Aubameyang started the game because I do think that with Pepe and Odegaard, ESR, and Saka on the pitch all at once, if that's what Arteta did, it wouldn't be that bad. But I still think Lacazette just adds something when you're playing with Pepe and ESR. I think it just works a lot better. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. I think it's going to be a lot tighter than people are making it out to seem. I've seen some score lines of 3-1 Arsenal, 3-0 Arsenal, and I just want to hold back on that just a little bit because we always go into matches where we feel like we're the superior side and we're at home and all of this. But the Premier League is so tight that I haven't really seen very many games where the margins were not fine. Like even against some of the better teams, like the margins have been fine. So I still think it's somewhere in the range of on the worst case scenario, a 1-1 type thing. And then in the best case scenario, a 2-1 or something like that. We still lack goals. And I think that that is something that you can say with certainty based on underlying metrics and really just full on stats. 5 goals in the league so far, 6 big chances created over all of the games that we played. That's not good. It's not good. Progressive passes, 15th in the league. We're not a team that really gets into that final third and creates pressure and creates a lot of chances. And I watch a lot of the games, and I even see teams that I don't even rate as much as we do get into the final third a lot more frequently than us and get better opportunities. So for me, it's a little bit of I want to be more economical or just a little bit more reserved and conservative when I make these predictions because although we're at home, I don't see them vacating the midfield like that horrible Spurs team the way that they did. So I'm actually going to predict a 2-1, something like that. I think we give away like a silly, free kick goal. I remember, like Benteke, some bullshit like that. And I think we scored 2 goals. I'm hoping. That's what I'm hoping. Hopefully it happens. But you guys want to drop some score lines in there and let me know what you guys think about this game. Are you confident? Do you think that Arteta will get the best or the better of Patrick Vieira? Do you think that Zaha and Edouard and all of these guys are going to be an issue for us? What do you think? Because it's one where I think a lot of rival fans are saying that Crystal Palace got this one in the bag. I don't think it's that easy for them, but I also don't think it's that easy for us. Ahmed Ahmed says, I think Pepe and Martinelli would outscore Saka and ESR. Potentially, but I also think we would struggle to get the ball into those good positions because we don't actually progress the ball into those dangerous areas without Saka and ESR on the pitch. So that's the issue that we really have at the moment is that Saka and ESR help us create and progress the ball from deep areas into the dangerous parts of the pitch. So when I look at the way that we score goals, it's usually either from Kieran Tierney bombing up the left-hand side and or ESR and Saka dropping in between the lines and progressing the ball forward. Um, and then giving it off to a Pepe or an Aubameyang or something like that. So all four, like you would need Saka, ESR, and Pepe on the pitch all at once to get that going. And it always leaves somebody out because then you want to include Odegaard as well. So we have an issue where two players that are a better fit for the way that we play and are inevitably the reason why we get into dangerous positions are two players that are not clinical enough and don't have their shooting boots as of yet. But the players that people want to see because they score more goals and they shoot the ball more, they probably would get more goals, but they don't get them unless Saka and ES are on the pitch. So that's kind of the issue that we have. And I think what Arteta chooses is hoping that Saka and ESR finish their chances versus putting Pepe and Martinelli out there knowing that they won't ever get the ball. They'll never get those crosses. They'll never get those cutbacks because those two players need to be on the pitch. Tony says, I won't predict a big Arsenal win until I see us dominate. Our big weakness against a press is keeping us honest. 3-2. Enzo says, we are 2 goals better than Palace. Wait, we're 2 goals. We have 2 more goals than Palace? Do we? I don't even know. Mr. Austin says 1-0 win. Partey scores. I mean, I hope they bring some of those goals back from international break. I mean, everybody was scoring. Tam says, I see a 1-0 win or a 2-1 loss. I'm scared of Edouard. I'm not really that scared of Edouard. I think he's a good player, but we see this all the time with players. They come into the league and they get a couple goals really quick. I think Gabriel and White and Tomiyasu have enough to handle them. I think Tomiyasu will shut Zaha down just like he did Son to a certain extent. And yeah, I don't really see that as, to me, that's not really what I'm afraid of. I'm more afraid of the physical battle with Benteke if they were to go that route. I remember Gabriel struggling a little bit with Benteke last time out against Crystal Palace away from home. So that would be more my worry. Is not so much Edouard because I think our center backs can handle him, but that physical battle with Benteke is one that really worries me because I saw Gabriel literally lay on the ground and let Benteke head the ball in the back of the net. It was very much like, wow. Abdul Latif says Odegaard has to sit this one out. Oh, his last time out was poor, and what I was most disappointed about was his body language. I thought his body language was really bad. He was losing the ball and wasn't trying to get the ball back. And but he played okay for Norway, but at the same time it's Norway, and they don't play the greatest teams, and so I never really take international performances account. The last time out, Odegaard was poor, but at the same time, I do think he has to play because I'd prefer not to see Sambi and Thomas again, and I think Odegaard would do better a little bit further back next to Thomas. But if he didn't start, I wouldn't be devastated, if I'm honest. I really wouldn't, because as much as I love Odegaard, I don't think that he's always should be a nailed on starter. I think sometimes last season when we opted for ESR and Lacazette, Pepe, and Saka, that's some of the best football that we played last season. And he was on the team at that time. Yo. Ahmed Ahmed says a front three of Laka, Martinelli, Pepe would be a Walmart version of Liverpool's front three, which could work. A Walmart version. Oh my gosh, I'm crying. Front three of Laka, Martinelli, and Pepe. Have we seen that? I feel like we saw that sometime last season. Let me check. Towards the very end of the season. Did we not? Let's see. Arsenal versus Sheffield United. Something tells me of Sheffield. I swear Elneny scored. I found it. I found it. My memory is not bad. Okay, so yeah, when we played Sheffield last season, we played with Pepe and Martinelli on the wings, Lacazette up front, and Saka in the 10. And so you could do something like that. If you play Martinelli and Pepe, you have to play Lacazette. You need somebody that can drop in and build play and do that. And Saka, I think, also can play number 10. He's not a traditional number 10, but he's an attacking midfielder that can progress the ball in those areas. And sometimes I do think he has a good pass on him. So, I mean, I wouldn't hate that front three. I just think it's unlikely with ESR and with ESR and Odegaard being two players that I think Arteta really favors. I cannot see him starting, especially because Martinelli is not fit. I can't see him doing this, but he has done it before. He has done it before. Abdulatif says Ramsdale clean sheet guaranteed, hopefully. Yo-Yo says that may have been Gabriel's first dance with him. He should be better prepared. I hope so. I hope so. Enzo says, let's be honest, if we play to our ability, we beat Palace by 2 goals. If we play to our ability. And that's true. Like, the thing about it is that I'm not under any illusion that they're a better team than us. I don't think they have more quality than us. I don't think they're in better form than us. I don't think any of that. What I do think is that we tend to struggle putting together a run of performances that mirror our quality. And so we may be getting the results. Like, I do think that the results that we got in the last 4 games was great, especially because we didn't put in the performances that I feel like reflected that. In particular, away at Burnley and away at Brighton. So for me, even though I think we're better than most of the teams that we play anyway, because we are, I think in the league, if we had to just put it like on paper, how good is our team versus everybody else? I think we're probably the 6th best team in the league, but it's not played on paper. And how many times in a row do we play to the best of our ability? We have a very difficult time putting together consistent runs at our level. And so that's my biggest worry about predicting that we're going to play at maximum level, which we only really did that 1 game out of the last 4. And so 1 game out of the 7 that we've played to the best of our ability, so it's hard to predict that we'll just do that. You know what I mean? Alexander N says, I think we will see ESR, Odie, Pepe, and Aubameyang. Where's Saka? Leonide says Odegaard has to play. We need creativity. I don't even think Odegaard adds very much creativity, if I'm honest. I think he adds just the technical security in midfield, and he's a good circulator of the ball. That creativity aspect of it, I think we really get from the directness and dynamic movement from Saka and ESR. I think they're more creative than Odegaard, if I'm honest. I think Odegaard's really good on the ball, though. BowietheCat says Arteta said Martinelli has a minor injury, so I doubt he'll risk him. Yeah, there's no reason to. Enzo says Mr. Niles could do a job next to Party. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing Ainsley play. But I think we're playing Crystal Palace at home. I think you save that kind of pivot for the game away at Leicester. I think for all 3 games that we play at home, we should try to go a little bit more offensive and a little bit more to put pressure on the opposition. I don't think Ainsley does that for you. Yo-Yo says Palace have only won 1 game and Arteta's teams don't normally concede a lot. Arsenal may not play well, but they will avoid defeat. And that's why I honestly have this game as at the worst case scenario, 1-1 draw, and best case scenario, 2-1, something of that nature. I still think we give up a goal, London Derby and all that kind of stuff. But I don't see us losing, but I see a draw in there as well. Like, I don't think we score enough goals, and we'll see what happens. But I don't see us losing. I definitely don't see that. Alexander says, edit my last post since I forgot Chile. I think we will counter their 4-3-3 with a 4-5-1 with Party behind ESR and Odie with Saka. Well, I think that's the formation that I was looking at was the 4-1-4-1. That's what I would want to see. Um, the typical back five with Partey in front, with Odegaard and ESR in front of them, Pepe and Saka out wide, and Lacazette up top. That's what I would want to see in this game. Ahmed Ahmed says Odegaard times Pepe equals goals, as we've seen towards the end of last season. Does it? Does Odegaard times Pepe equal goals? You mean like against Crystal Palace last season? I don't know. I thought Odegaard times Aubameyang equaled goals, but I thought Pepe plus Lacazette plus ESR equaled goals. So that's interesting. I do think, but I think we have limited amount of combinations that create goals at the volume in which we need. We're lacking two key profiles in those front four positions, in my opinion, to start scoring goals for fun, and probably a system change as well. Tony says that's fun. AMN at 6, covering Kieran Tierney frees up Party to do more midfield things. The issue with AMM playing the 6 and covering for Tierney is he's not left-footed. And we saw that Sambi, the thing about when you drop into that left back position, you want somebody who's naturally left-footed, and that's why Xhaka does it so well. I think Sambi struggled with it, and I think AMN will as well, because neither of them are left-footed. And that's why I just feel like you just play Odegaard there. But I also just feel like we need to stop vacating midfield and leaving our midfield open. And just because we don't occupy central spaces. We just don't. And vacating the midfield against a team that doesn't even have a great midfield, I think, is just playing into their hands a little bit. So I prefer our midfielders stay in midfield. And if Kieran Tierney has to pick and choose his times to go forward, I would prefer that over AMN dropping into left back and Thomas Partey dropping into center back and there being no midfield. Let's see. Ahmed Ahmed says, what's your thoughts on Arsenal apparently looking for an attacking right back in the next few windows? Seems like a plan to me. For me, I think Tomiyasu is good for what we're trying to do at the moment, but I think eventually as the team gets better and we add key profiles into our team, we will need a more attacking right back to have a different option if things change. I think Tomiyasu, hopefully Saliba, Ben White, and Gabriel is a good quartet in terms of center back options when we get back into Europe. And then you have Ben White and Tomiyasu and an attacking right back that can play in that right back position. I personally feel like we need that. We don't overlap. I think that's a key issue to why we don't sustain pressure against teams is we don't overlap. We don't create overloads in wide spaces, and we don't run beyond the defense. We just kind of play in front of them and try to push them back, but we don't actually run beyond. And I think an attacking right back is something over the next couple of windows we should be looking at, as well as a left winger and a center midfielder and a striker. When those positions come in, I think we'll be a lot more dangerous. But that's 4 positions right there. Yo-Yo says, based on minutes and infrequent starts, Pepe is clearly the most clinical forward at the club, despite being disliked by Arteta and the majority of fans. Yo-Yo, the majority of fans, I don't believe it's the majority. It's interesting. We are going to have the Pepe discussion tonight at 10 p.m. UK time. Me, Souls, and George will be here, and we'll be having a more in-depth conversation about Pepe. I find it an interesting conversation. A lot of people find it frustrating when you spend 72 million on a player and his compilations look the way that they did, and his first couple of games at Arsenal look the way that they did, and he's the only player to ever dribble past Virgil van Dijk. You know, he's a key pivotal piece of why we win the FA Cup. And then all of a sudden he's on the outskirts of the team. It is a difficult conversation to have. It's frustrating, especially with an Arsenal team that doesn't score a lot of goals. I have my personal opinions about Pepe. I think the system doesn't suit him, and that's not necessarily his fault. But I also think there are just some key issues with him in terms of the basics that he doesn't get. Those can be If he's more clinical, those can be overlooked, but when he's not clinical, they can't be. But we'll discuss that more at 10 p.m. UK time. I do like Pepe. I just wonder about the fit. I really, really do. And I just wish he was better at the basics. And I think we also talk about him like he's a young kid. He's going to be 27 at the end of the season. So he's not as young as I feel like people think he is. Tamp says, question, would you play Partey as an 8 next to Odegaard and Lakanga as a 6 behind him? No, because I don't think Sambi has developed the positional awareness yet to play in the 6 right in front of the, back line. Would I switch it and play Thomas in the 6 and play, Sambi as a 8? Probably. I just feel like he doesn't have the positional discipline yet to trust him to play right in front of the back line. I also think sometimes Sambi can be a little lackadaisical when he's tracking back, and your 6 can't be lackadaisical. He just can't. And so I wouldn't risk it as of now. In the future, do I see that as his position as he matures? Yeah, I do. I could easily see a midfield of Odegaard and ESR and Sambi in the future when they all develop and they become the players that we're projecting them to be. That would be a midfield that I can definitely see. But at the moment, I think Thomas is your best option if you want to play with a single pivot, even though that's not his best position. Mr. Austin, do you think Rob Holding still has time to improve? No, I don't. I think what you can do with Rob is you can put him in situations that benefit him, have the right players around him to make sure that his flaws are not easily noticed. I think Rob is probably as good as he's going to be in terms of technical quality and his general defense. I think you can always improve the way that you think about the game and getting in front of situations and being smarter in certain situations. I think that's how senior defenders get better over time. So I think you can improve that. But do I think he can improve his levels to the point where we would see him playing for a top 6, top 8 team in the future? No. I think he's very much a mid-table Premier League level defender that would be better suited in a team that plays in a low block. That's kind of the level that I think Rob Holding is at. But I think he has benefited from Arteta being able to put him in good positions and make him more aware of his surroundings and stuff like that. Just like Xhaka benefited from that, and Mustafi benefited from that as well before he left the club. So I don't see him really improving that much, though. Um, let's see. Alexander N says, even if we bring in a cool wing back, I'm not concerned about Tomiyasu getting phased out. He can play across the back line, and since he is only 22, he can get more attacking too. It's not about phasing out. I think a team that wants to be in Europe is going to need to have different options for different days. And I think you do want to have 4 really good center back options that can start on their day. Nobody that you'd be like, oh my gosh, so and so is starting today. I'm so scared. If you have a back 4 kind of options of Saliba, Tomiyasu, Ben White, and Gabriel, you can also play Gabriel and Tomiyasu as center backs and Ben White as a right back. You can have your more attacking right back there and play Tomiyasu on the left and Saliba on the right. You have different options, and I don't think phasing out is the right word. I just feel like as we get better and more dominant, we will want an attacking option as a right back. And I think we need to get one at some point. Not right away, though. I'm loving Tomiyasu at the moment, if I'm honest. Yo-Yo says, agrees. Lack of width is why the attackers have struggled under Arteta. Hecky B, Willian combo nullified. Arsenal and choosing to play Xhaka instead of Saka was the final nail in the coffin last season. You mean at like left back and left wing back? Is that what you mean? I just think when I watch us play, I feel like we're so afraid vacate um to vacate positions that we tend to just kind of stay in our little area. And I feel like you're able to put teams on under pressure when you take risks and sometimes you don't benefit from the risk, but it's almost like Arteta feels like every time we risk, we're gonna get scored on, and I don't think that's how it really works, but it's almost like he feels that every time that we, try to throw men forward, we will get scored on, so let's not do it, and I just think that we don't have anybody that makes late runs into the box. We don't have players that overlap. We don't have players that run beyond. We don't have that. We play in front of the other team so much that it's so easy to figure out what we're going to do. And unless you have really good technical quality and players that can play in really tight spaces in one half of the pitch, I just don't think we can afford to be the type of team that doesn't take advantage of running in behind. I just don't see it. City can do it. They can sit in front of a team all day long and then at some point pick out a pass that nobody else could see and there's a tap in right on the other end of it. We just don't have that, and there's something about not taking advantage of the counterattack that kills me. Not making late runs into the box kills me. Not making sure Pepe is closer to the six kills me. It's just so many different things that I just feel like if you got Pepe closer to the box, I know he'd score more goals, but in this system, there just are wide players are never really that close to the box, and they're never one on one. They always have like two or three players to beat, and it's just not on. It's just not on. Let's see. Um, Ahmed Ahmed says Pepe could go to the Champions League club like AC Milan and be their starting right wing. Of course he could. Of course he could. Like, I'm not, and that's the thing. That's the interesting part about the Pepe conversation is that I don't think anybody that maybe is on the kind of like maybe we should move Pepe on thinks he's not a good player. I think that's the funny thing about it is that if you say that you're not sure about Pepe, that you're pretty much saying that you don't like him or you don't think he's any good. This is just too fuzzy for me. But I think he's a good player. That's the thing is I think he's good and I think in somebody else's system he thrives, but just not in ours. He needs space to run in behind. We never run in behind. We just don't. It pisses me off. Um, what did I see? Let's see. I'm looking. This is just a random conversation to you guys at this point. It is what it is. Tony says, I think we have good options. I don't have strong feelings either way. Yeah, I get that. Yo-Yo says, do you trust the new Arsenal can come back from going a goal behind? I believe Arteta has failed to win from going behind at halftime in the Prem. Can they come back from behind? I'm not sure. I need to see it to believe it. I'm one of those types of people that sometimes I need to see something in order to believe it. And I do think that as long as this team struggles to score goals and as long as Arteta is he doesn't really start throwing men forward or at least putting more even when we put more attackers onto the pitch it's still restrained, and so I don't particularly see us being the type of team that can engage in a game that goes, oh, this team like Aston Villa scores a goal, then we score a goal, then Aston Villa scores a goal, then we score a goal, and then we score another one. I've yet to see us play in a match like that. If you think back at it, this is really interesting. I would love to see the numbers on it. We win when the game usually goes our way pretty much from minute one. When we can score a goal in the first half or keep them from scoring one early, we usually can win the game. But usually when the things aren't going in our direction, it usually just kind of stays like that. It's very difficult for us to kind of turn the tide around, especially if a team scores the goal, the first one. So I personally feel like we're the type of team that even the way that we score goals, if you guys notice, the way that we score goals most times is from back to front. Literally, the other team has to break down from the front all the way to the back for us to score a goal. We rarely score goals where we're sitting at the halfway line, we're recycling the ball and putting the team under pressure multiple times before they come back down our throat. Most of the times when we score is we're passing the ball out of the back, we find an opening and we go from back to front, which I think is a really good kind of picture of how Arsenal are at the point at this point. We are very much a team that needs things to kind of be good from the very beginning for us to get the result. And so I would say at this point I need to see it to believe it, Yo-Yo. I really do. Um yeah, you guys seem really interesting in the Pepe conversation. If you guys are around, I would say come back at in about an hour and a half. Me and George and Souls are going to have a more in-depth conversation about just Pepe, his contract situation, what we thought we were getting when we first got him, what we're seeing now, how we can get the best out of him. Should we re-sign him because he needs a new contract if we're going to continue on with him? Should we allow him to walk away for free at 29 years old? Who's in Europe is actually going to buy him at this point? Teams are skint. They don't have money. Who's going to pay us 40 million for Pepe? So I think this is an interesting conversation to have because Pepe, he's weird because he's not a bad player, but he doesn't fit a system that the manager is playing. But the whole attack is not fitting Arteta's system, if we're honest. It's a good conversation to have, I think. So I would say you guys just come back in about an hour and a half, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. Um, yeah, exactly. Oh, let's see. Endo says two Spurs players have COVID. I bet they cancel their game with Newcastle. Remember Brentford? We'll see. Do you think they're actually going to cancel it? Because how they did us was so dirty. Like they did us so dirty. And so I would expect that game to go on. No, Ahmed, what I mean is that by the time his contract ends, he will be 29 years old. And so he will be, if we don't give him a new deal, but we allow him to stay, he runs his deal down and he'll leave us at 29 years old. That's what I meant. He's 26 right now. I know. Yeah. So, all right, you guys, that was just a preview slash ramblings about our team. Hopefully we win the game. I'm cautiously confident, but I'm not about to sit here and predict some big win. I'm really not. We'll see what happens, but no more streams until Monday. Do instant match reaction as soon as the game is done. Monday or no, Tuesday, we'll do the post match podcast and just move on all the way till after the Aston Villa game. Try to have as many streams as possible for you guys from now until then. Um, I'm working. I do have like kind of a little bit of an announcement. Um, I don't even know if I should tell you guys or not just yet, but I will be doing some covering for LAFC, so I will be kind of in and out. But I will be doing some presenting at Premier League Live that's happening in LA next weekend. So the schedule for podcasts might be a little bit wonky, but if you guys do get a chance to watch Premier League Live, I would say Premier League Mornings Live. I would say take a look and see if you see me because I might be there presenting. And so yeah, but come back at 10 p.m. UK time so that we can talk more about Pepe, have a little bit of a laugh, whatever. You guys can yell at us in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.